This is the next instalment of my series on the interview that Roadside Nick did with Adventures with Purpose. This particular video focuses on the question of who was the young man that was seen with the girl that Nick talks about. Was it Jagger or was it someone else? Now, we've been for well over a year now avoiding discussing Jagger because the majority of us now believe that Jagger had no involvement whatsoever. However, if we're going to go back over this video, then we have to go back over this section where Nick describes a young man who many people jump to the conclusion of that this man was Jagger. So let's listen to what is said here, and I'm going to share my thoughts on it, my observations, comment on the things that could make Jagger look guilty and the things which actually work in his favour. So let's make a start.
So
biggest lead, in a case.
If this is not if it's true, but if this happened the night after the party, the day after the party, and then this gentleman you're talking about would be the number one suspect, honestly.
Right.
So the male there?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So if you could go into detail, just try to describe it one last time. You said ball cap, hair coming out. What else you got?
He had a bro tank on. It was white. He had a ball cap, black base. It wasn't even a baseball hat. It's a flat bill hat facing forward. It was kind of off to the sideways.
Age, about the same age, a little older.
If you saw a picture of him, could you say yes or no?
His face, yeah.
Can you pull up the picture of the boyfriend?
So I guess my first question, given that further through this interview, Doug then identifies Jagger without actually naming him, has anyone ever seen images of Jagger wearing a bro top or a bro tank? Because when I look at the interview that he did with Fox 40, what I see is a somewhat tall young man who is self-conscious. He is standing in a position where he is looking down. He has his shoulders hunched forward. And you can also see on his arms the lines of what I would call a farmer's tan. Meaning that, as far as summer wear, he seems to prefer his t-shirts. The other images I've seen of him when he wears a hoodie, he has the hood of the hoodie pulled over his head, like he is quite self-conscious and trying to be invisible in the world. While to me, and this could just be a cultural thing, but to me, the idea for an 18-year-old boy wearing a bro tank would be that he is a somewhat confident young man, as opposed to someone who wants to hide from the world. So, do we think, really, that he is the bro tank kind of wearing guy? His skin looks pretty damn white under that t-shirt, so to me that would suggest that he's not someone who does actually get around in bro tanks. So that's one thing that I have a question about. And as far as the flat-billed hat, yeah, we've heard the description of Jagger's hat, basically, but how many of them are there around in California? Countless. I do have a question about what Nick meant when he said he was asked if he would recognise the young man, and he said, yeah, his face. So what was so significant about the young man's face that Nick thought would mean that he would be able to recognise him if he saw him again?
Oh, yeah. That's the same hat, too.
That's it.
Uh-huh.
And you had kind of longer hair like that?
Yeah. So this is a gentleman known in the media as Now, again, you know, for your protection, our protection, this is all alleged. And that we're not saying anything. We're not insinuating anybody. Obviously, to us, this would be just a person of interest, like just as like it would be to any detective or investigator who's investigating this case.
Okay, let's be realistic here. No investigator is going to show a witness just one image of one single person. There's actually been tests done where people have been tested out by, they've observed a person and then they've been shown one single photo of a person that wasn't actually that person, and then asked if they can identify that person, you know, is this the person you saw? And they've said yes. So basically, Doug, what he's doing here is he is inadvertently leading the witness. We can't put anything into this assertion that that's who he saw. It's actually not an independent identification. The suggestion has been made that this is the person who he should have seen. And of course, subconsciously, his brain has decided, well, this is what I'm being shown, this must be the same person. They're wearing the same hat. They have the same coloured hair. Hypothetically, were this a situation where Doug was an investigator and he was interviewing Nick, and Nick identified Jagger through a photo like that, it would not be admissible in court. The fact that Doug is essentially leading the witness here immediately makes me want to not completely throw out, but extremely cautious of the information that is given here in this video. And let's be realistic also. Doug is trying to be cautious here and not name names, but he has basically said outright that this young man has been known in the media. How many young men did we know at the time that Kiely's case was out there? And how many young men did we know who wore one of those flat-billed caps? So, as much as they might like to claim that they haven't, what Adventures with Purpose have done here is that they have, in fact, identified Jagger and made some pretty serious accusations against him, saying, well, if this is indeed who you saw, and we believe it is, then he's the last person that saw Kiely and he's the #1 suspect. No wonder Jagger was so furious with Adventures with Purpose and called them clout chasers. This was really not a fair move, and I don't believe that this information should have in fact been released to the public, because it is misleading and is also damaging for Jagger.
So we're not implying guilt or anything like that whatsoever. We also don't know if this was the day before, the day of, or the day after. But that's for us to put together. Sure. And figure out where that fits. Okay. But it's major information, especially you just identifying who we know is a close person to her, whether he was a boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. That's pretty big. That's pretty big. So.
And of course, given that the junior hamburger wasn't publicly known at this point in time, then by saying whether it was a boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, that's narrowed it down to one single individual person. So I can understand why people got all excited, for want of a better term, over this video and started accusing Jagger.
Any other questions?
Good.
When you went into detail about, or I guess we covered that by his looks, but just for the sake of the camera, skin complexion, hair color, hair length, just to hear you say all of those descriptors?
So his hair, I mean, from the picture that you showed me, it was sticking out a lot with me. It wasn't sticking out that much. I mean, I saw brown hair sticking out on the corners of each side of his hat, but other than that, he was, I mean, a thinner built guy is the best way I could put it, with a bro tank, and it was white bro tank. He had some freckles on his face, like, or maybe it was like acne or whatnot, but it was on both sides of his face. And he had that black San Francisco. Oh, he was also a little bit like shorter than me, so I'm 6'3", so he was shorter than me. I would put him probably like a little under 6 foot.
I would have liked to hear an observation in terms of skin tone. He talks about freckles or acne or something either side of the face, but he can't quite remember what that is. So immediately that tells me that the image that he has in his head of this individual's face isn't quite as strong as what he believes it is. Now, the other thing there is that the description of the hair definitely is not Jagger. Jagger had a lot more than just a little bit sticking out under the cap. So, for me, that's a big thing. And that tells me that he is perhaps, I'm going towards 95% certainty that the individual that he saw was not Jagger. Obviously, we can't completely rule it out, but I would feel pretty confident ruling it out. Now, let's talk about height. Nick says that he himself is 6'3", and that the guy was shorter than him, probably around 6 foot. Now, the reason I've put this image up on the screen in front of us is that we know that Kate is actually quite a tall girl. Taller than Kiely, who was 5'7". And yet, Jagger still towers above her. So, my question there, would Jagger be taller than 6 foot? How tall is Kate? That would be interesting to know. And I would like to know how tall Jagger is, because I believe that he is actually taller than 6 foot, given the comparison in height between him and Kate.
I would guess.
Was he white? Was he...
He was white. He was Caucasian, yeah.
Thank you. Oh, what days do you work? What's the window you're giving us of when this happened?
Either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I believe. Because the weekends I usually cover Truckee, so, and that Friday I also worked in Truckee, so yeah.
If you were to make a bet on what day it was, what would you say?
I mean, when I was looking back under my GPS, under my phone of where I've been, I was there both Saturday and Sunday, farther into Boca.
Now, once again, we have him being vague about which day he thinks that he was there. But him saying that he knows that he was there both Saturday and Sunday out at Boca, to me, wouldn't you remember the events in sequence? You would remember, if you did 2 different call-outs to Boca and they were a day apart, you would remember which one you went to first. Meaning that he should be able to place whether he went out to Boca and saw her car on the Saturday or the Sunday. Was it the first call out you did to Boca or the second call out you did to Boca? I can't help wondering, and this was actually a point that one of my subscribers made, and it is a really good point. Has he been asked by the detective that he spoke to not give out specific details about what day he was there? Because he is being kind of vague about which day he was there. Or is he worrying about committing himself on camera to the wrong date? But then we know afterwards that his girlfriend spoke up and said that it was the Saturday because that was her father's birthday. So there's something unusual about this whole confusion over when he was there. Although now that I've said it about the girlfriend, it's possible that he had not mentioned to her that if he had been told not to say when he was there, perhaps the girlfriend may not have been aware of that. And her turning around and saying, well, it was a Saturday because that was my father's birthday, may have actually been putting her foot in it. Just a thought. It's a question that only Nick can answer, really. But I'm very curious about why he struggles so much to remember which day it was that he was there.
So
Not Friday.
Did you
Yeah.
take any memorable pictures that same day that happened? Because that would be a way to
Or a
catalog
text,
so you can possible
tag.
date that happened.
I
remember like eating lunch at like Wendy's that same day and you took
I actually called my girlfriend right after because of how awkward the situation was.
Let's pull up the catalog of that photo.
Yeah,
call to see
yeah.
if we can find it.
Absolutely.
So just to make sure, does he look familiar to you at all?
Yeah, he didn't have, like, the beard was kind of gone, but his hair was not down that far. It was like, I don't know if you could block that out. It was like to right there, but it was going back as if it was going back
So
into the hat.
on a scale from 1 to 10,
That's a 9.
that's
a
a
9.
9. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question is, did he misspeak when he said the beard is kind of gone? Because Jagger didn't have any kind of beard. He had a little moustache. Well, a shadow of a moustache. But essentially Nick is saying that the guy that he saw was clean shaven. And that he didn't have long hair. That it was like going back into the hat. So that's a bit of a vague description. I can't see Jagger managing to get his hair up into that hat. And he doesn't strike me as a ponytail kind of guy. When asked how certain he was, he gives a 9 out of 10 for certainty. Given that he's mentioned 2 things already that didn't fit, I think 9 out of 10 is being a bit generous. So here, to me, he's really not certain that he is talking about the same individual.
So at the time, I think it would be safe to say that his hair was like maybe pulled back.
Yeah. He doesn't have that much acne. The guy that I saw, I don't know if it's because it's blurry, but he had like right underneath. He had like little red marks and whatnot. That was one thing that I saw, but again, I don't try to judge. I just try to.
Yeah. And just so you guys can see, that's the picture we're talking about right here. This is the public. This is the picture that is publicly being shown right now by other news media outlets.
I'm confused by the statement he doesn't have that much acne. And also, what does he mean by having red under his eyes? But one thing I wanted to point out, because he's talking about him having freckles or something either side of the face, and to me he's inferring that it's kind of even. But Jagger has a pretty large mole on the side of his face. So you'd think that that is something that someone would actually notice. Perhaps when he's saying to Doug he didn't have that much acne, perhaps he wasn't seeing a zoomed in image of Jagger's face and could just see something there on his cheeks and presumed it was acne. But had he been actually interacting with Jagger himself personally, then he would know that that was actually a mole and that it was permanent. He would have seen it. He would be commenting on it, is my thought. As much as I have huge respect for Doug, I feel like he's trying to fit a square peg into a round hole here. First of all, when Nick is saying, no, the hair's not right, Doug is trying to explain it away with, well, it must be in a ponytail. Like I said, I can't see Jagger as being a ponytail kind of person. Also, he's once again identifying this individual on the video to audiences as someone who has been shown in the media. So he seems to be quite determined to drop Jagger in it. I think it's irresponsible. Like I said, I do have respect for Doug, but I disagree with what he did here. Especially because what Nick is saying to me sounds like he's definitely not identifying Jagger. So there's still roughly 10 minutes of this uncut interview left to cover. And there's actually some important points at towards the end of it, which I do want to discuss. So, while I recognise that some people may be getting a bit over listening to my observations about Nick, I'm going to push on, and I figure I've got this far, I might as well actually finish covering this Nick interview. Not in this video, of course, but I will do additional videos on this Nick interview. I will also do a more general follow-up video on it. I've got quite a lot of notes that I've made about it. It may be something that I do as a live stream. I haven't decided yet, but I'll finish working through this interview first. So thanks for listening. If you've not already subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe. And also please hit the like button on your way out. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of what we've discussed so far in this particular video. Do you believe it was Jagger? Are there things that make you think that it's definitely not Jagger, or are there things that make you think that it could be Jagger? Anyway, thanks for listening. Stay tuned. There'll be more.